Happy face?
Luke, how
Hey,
you
man.
doing, mate? Let me just make it a little bit less, make it sort of more quiet here. Hold on. Let's see,
Okay.
yeah.
I know you
Um,
said we'd be off air, but
yeah,
if it's okay with you, I'm gonna record. And
yeah, yeah.
because I remember something you said that I don't know if it's the right metaphor, but you said when you're practicing uropathy, you feel bad if you let any spill, and that's the way I feel about your insight and speaking to you. I just want to savor every.
yeah. It's amazing because, yeah, we're going to be able to, by doing podcasts a bit, but anybody that listens to some of what we've got can pick up the whole thing because the whole thing really is about consent and being given consideration. And these are the things which is common, and those are things which also, what is the process where, what's above government, which is we the people, and anybody else has to say, of course, that they do have that because it says we the people, but yet is that so in a system which is organised to cut all of we the people out? That's not, consideration doesn't exist like it should, and a nation's protectedness and their sovereignty is related to security and peace and relation with other nations. And always someone is put like, well, how do you do business, more or less, and as a nation, and so that then every other nation can know. Yet, what we really have is a covenant, which is a language exchange between ourselves, where somebody is focused on framing things more positively. Second, they're totally focused on sorting out disagreements, getting agreement, and seeking agreement with your adversary straight away. Where something else is not, it means what? Life doesn't matter in the picture, but something fictional has existed, which this is not lawful. What's lawful is that we ought to protect people in government and protect people in the nation and protect we the people. And you're not making any distinctions. You're focused on making sure that you really care that people are safe where they are. And where everybody is under an agentic state, it's because some sort of science is below that, and that anything new that's come in, that science sort of assists you be obedient to what you feel is logical. And if you knew that, for instance, past your eyes, like cook the truth, and there's no such thing as something being sterile per se, and that spontaneous arisedness and pleomorphism is many changing forms, and this is science, and it's not science that something is in a set, fixed form. So, it isn't, in fact. So to say or speak about something like it is, like a virus or something, when that doesn't exist, and that as a spore, there's a pleomorphic condition, and for the moment that something can have fluid and warmth and what have you, a certain temperature and stuff, things can be spontaneously rising. Pasteur was never able to see that the flasks of urine that he did in his experiments would never not be turbid. And so you might have to have hidden that so people could see, but maybe that something is sterile when it isn't, you see. So this is an example. Another example might be if you're just looking at whether something exists or not, like so a concept, like let's say, how does life arise and what mathematical concept could support that as a, right?
Okay.
You'd see that an involuted condition does, because that is about curves that are inward more, which makes life. And an evoluted system, if you try to make life out of math like that, you can't. It's impossible because you've only got curves outward. So if you're just explaining what that is. You're not talking to anybody who's wanting to defend some religion or some belief or something. That's a complex equivalent. So, each part is something which can be dealt with, but it has to be dealt with of itself and can't be, it could be dealt with by isolating the parts that's in a picture, yes?
Mm.
Yeah, we do. All of us would. That's kind of what we should do. The new covenant would be, first, the framing is possible. Second, positively inducted currency, of course, and that's asset-backed, and that the new reset is zeroing out the debt and not having any debt, getting rid of all third-party interloper, which, as you could see, what is the reason why you're not the executor of your own affair, which you should be, the fiduciary of your own affair, which you should be, and when you're not, what's the reason? Did something occur that suddenly you were not able to do that? Personally, if you isolate bits of this, like the birth certificate, which all the money's made from, check out any note that you pull out of your pocket. A basic number is there. So you and I, we should have consideration. And where's the consideration being given to we the people? If somebody could do something and we the people couldn't, you'd see a lack of consideration is certainly a lack of consent. And if you've got a monopolisation, that's totally against what's common. You have to get rid of the monopolisation because the monopolisation is not right. So in a smart contract, you could use real words, a real noun, real verb, and things add up. Otherwise, you've got past syntax. You've got syntax which is fraudulent. It doesn't add up, and it's nothing defined properly. And yes, so the four corners of a document has to have proper languaging, and when it doesn't add up. You've got two negatives and all sorts of things. This is not a proper contract, and so a smart contract where this is, it's decentralized government, and it's about our relation between each other, and it's a timestamp. And .arm is a server we all own, and all of us. So no person could own that more than anyone else, and the same with currency as well, because you can't have a monopolisation. And under ecclesiastics, which all laws come from, and have you ever studied ecclesiastical maximum? If you're spiritual, why wouldn't you? Because that would be the subject, wouldn't it? Yes? You have to be understanding what's spiritual and learn all the unique ecclesiastical maximum that exists, which laws all come from. And you're upholding more what's common custom where we are versus it's not common custom that you unconscionably would have made a contract with a baby. No one would say that's right. It isn't. And so a BC comes about because of that. Someone couldn't think that something is unconscionable, that you'd be with this living being having some group, private, owning something as an idea and being able to contract with a baby. And so that you as a parent have put on some document which said sort of that the state of the state of the state is the holder of the name and the holder of apparently that living beings' commerce. And that's pledged. These are things which is usury, and usury is slavery. And how can you go forward where you don't fix up what costs a fortune and cannot be sustained and isn't and is not logical, but something is, isn't it? Positive inductive currency is. And verified vote to create that. And that currency should be tied and connected to governance versus where it's not. How crazy is that? And so and you and I own the currency that's created equally, and you have an account. So you are the bank, you see, versus a bank being somewhere else. The bank is within, and you're directing where the currency or current goes and what happens. So somebody has a mission statement, and so they can get funded. If you don't have a mission statement, how the hell could you get funded? But you're getting funded from positive inductive currency versus negatively inducted, and it's equivalent to what that creates where you have it when you're finished. But with the living, you're only joining the living with the living. That's an ecclesiastical maximum. You can't put living beings and join them with the dead. To give you an example, you wouldn't put a rabbit with a rock, and you wouldn't say that Sally is equivalent to 10 other people or connected as one entity. You wouldn't say that because that 10 other people don't have an organised central nervous system. They cannot be equal to one person. One person is equal to the other person. In being, we use that word person, but it's like the beloved. Just use the word beloved. So living, the living is with the living and the dead is with the dead. Dead is something fictional, isn't it? It's not living. It's like a reflection in a mirror. A reflection in a mirror is dead. It's fictional. It's not you who's real. And so same with a record or anything else. A record is dead, and most of these records might not have been ever any testimony about any claim because it never was put with a common law court of record, which would be then a trial by jury as a process, not a jury trial. That's very different. And so there's room for you and I to have a moral ethic, yes?
Right.
And consent and consideration is supposed to be so that you'd look to see if that's so or not. That's very important. And if one's nation, where the people really is the creditor, and that this is the chain of command, which it is, and that everything else is a fictional corporation that's below, and this decentralization is what happens all over the earth because it's an alliance of law movement. This is actual what people care for because investment can come to be. You can only have liberty if people are equal to each other. You can't have justice if people are not equal to each other. You've got two tiered sorts of systems going on that anybody could see, which we'll talk about in a bit. But the server called .arm couldn't be owned by a private group and run, and a monopoly couldn't be in military secret intel, and so company members would be running something so they would crash the net. By cyber attack and blame that on Iran, which is the story, which is to crash the net and then reboot it and have it be that you can't have anonymity, you can't be anonymous, and because why? Well, because people hacked it, you see, but it's set up so that can happen, so that it's just sort of more a track tag and ID. We all really have a real true ID and not an abridged right. And you can't have a digital ID that's an abridged right. That's ridiculous. Why would you and I want that? You'd want the right you have as a woman or man. You've got the title, that's woman, our species of woman. We the people really is all over in a solidarity all over the world, and in any nation also, every nation under an alliance, more of a alliance of law, as a movement, which is the arm, and where currency really, which is the arm, and arming where it needs to be, is positively inducted. Like we said, you've got debt zeroed out, which.
Hello?
Oh, yeah, good.
Oh, sorry.
That's good. And I wouldn't compete with the noise that just came on, mate. But let's see, all beloved really are given an account in this new system, and everybody's compensated because most people really are costed hollow survivors, really, you know.
Mm.
I'll wait
I
for the
see.
noise to pass.
Is that on my end or yours?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't hear anything over here.
Oh, okay. Um,
What
yeah,
could it
there's a
be?
lot of noise. Discharging all the charges is really what should be. Um, or maybe you need to call back because we've got a real buzzing and I can hear being recorded. Yeah?
Oh, okay. So what I'll do is I'll turn my microphone down. That's probably what it is. Just hang on one
Or
second.
if, it, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's, uh, oh, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, that's quite basically, yeah. Are you there, mate? Oh, no, I can't hear you now.
adjusting the microphone because I guess it has buzzing in it. But if I put it
Yeah,
down,
well, I see.
is that better?
You just have to make sure that it's loud enough in your recording. Um,
You're definitely loud enough.
yeah, okay. And then I can hear that you're there versus I'm talking and I can't hear all of a sudden that anybody else is on the other line at all. I mean, we could have been dropped a call, so I don't want to keep saying, "Are you there?" Let's
Right.
see. Uh, yeah. So in the past, really, everything was discharged. That's a republican with debt, and any law which has been uh, is still standing. It was a law. Any law which was or has been made, which is ridiculous and can't be relate to anything, you fall back to what is supposed to be or what was. And we used to, we all, you know, in a republic, basically, but not acting upon things as we could or should, because it's really informed consent, that which what a republic actually means, and it's different. Like if you look at what the definition of a republic is versus a democracy, but all really comes back, you know, which the definition of heaven is the space that's existing between two children playing. And so that's here on Earth versus somewhere out there. What's what's yours and my presuppositions where we are? You know, what's gone on precognitively that causes you or I to have chosen something is a lot of set of stuff that's scientific that's been put below, but it's not proper science at all at this moment. So, for instance, like most people, they don't know that your blood is formed more from the intestine and from your lung, and it's on a process of aggregating, fusing, and differentiation. And a red blood corpuscle doesn't have any DNA in it, though if it becomes extravasated, meaning it becomes stuck somewhere and lodged outside the vessels of the body, which it does, it can then be seen to pleomorph into, through a process of aggregation, fusion, differentiation, into an immune cell. Somebody could learn more about this. These are observations and factual, whereas a lot of things like blood is made in your bone is a theory, which is not proper. Also, a piece of steel, yeah, is going to break down into life cord. And the same with the bitumen and tar on a road, and the petroleum that's inside an engine, and that some things only reproduce at around 600 degrees or more. And so life exists going way down into the earth, full of life colloid and colloid of life, which it's made of. Are you there, mate?
Yes, mate. I'm really sorry about the microphone.
Okay. I think you're going to have to come in every now and then, because otherwise I'm talking and I'm not sure if you're there at all. You see?
I see.
Yeah. So that's going. I think actually you listen to the other shows, you're going to hear the same thing, sort of thing going on.
Right.
I think it's because I can't even hear you there sometimes. You see? So I'm just talking. So that can, but.
You know, I always just defer to you because you're the
need to
man.
make sure our quality of sound is good. So we'll take a little bit of a moment. People will have to understand that. But government really is formed to protect your private property. And now, can somebody say that? Government is formed to protect private property, period. That's it. There is no reason for government other than to protect your private property. That's it. Okay? That's the definition of governance. Wow. All right? So why would you all of a sudden somebody have some other definition of that? That's wrong. Okay? A new republic is a republic at peace because it's you and I. We selected this. Okay? Because you never ever selected to be under the big Mick. That system. Right. And then what we're talking about more is an alliance of law movement between all of us, which it does exist because it's common practice, and that's what international law is. And a private company can't be, paid to sabotage other people's stuff. Yeah? That's not right. You can't do that. That's not common practice, okay? So, we've got to get back to what this is, and it is the fourth estate. That's you and I, and the system that does exist, that's pre-ordered, that is above corporation. And so who's the chief that comes along as the bailiff is the head of all sheriffs, corporate sheriff. Yes, because everybody has to say they have we the people behind them. And do they have joinery? And mostly, no. In the system, they don't. It's called corpus delicti, meaning they've got some presuppositions which they're going to run with. They don't have any fact, but it looks like something exists. And so they're going to press what that is, but no body exists. It means corpus delicti. But too much goes on where that is, where people are, and that's wrong. You've got to have someone who is a victim if harm, injury, cost, or damage is somebody who has to have standing. And alphabet soup land doesn't, but it only does if you're a fiction in your head because you were joined as a fiction there, as in all caps, you see?
Right.
Only. And so, so in a future moment, let me see. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that call coming in. I don't know. It's going to go beep, beep, and this person, but I'm not sure what to do with that. It's okay.
I appreciate your time, Dr. Jubb.
So people gather and they just say, yes, we're supportive, that we would care for an inquiry into government transgression. Good. Well, that's a check and balance. It's supposed to be. That's your quorum sensing in the system. And when you don't have quorum sensing in a system, you've got somebody giving you orders and they're on the other side of the mountain and they have no idea what's going on the ground.
Right.
So you and I, we would never put a fox in charge of the hen house. Yeah. But you and I, you own your own account in this new reset. Somebody else doesn't own that account. You have. That's yours. That's your private property. Versus something is a theft for all of us, and it's sort of positively inductive for someone else who steals it.
Oh boy.
And so, all own equally what the growth of currency is. And white papers and stuff is sort of written more about the arm and everything, but there's no service fees, there's no transaction fees. You own the account, and it functions as cash, as water, so it cannot be speculated in, which is substance. And so it's common that you and I, we would have our substance, and it's not common that substance would be taken away from you or I, especially for contagion when it doesn't exist. A claim doesn't exist about that.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's seen it, and it doesn't have any face validity, and it doesn't have any construct, and it doesn't have any context either. That something is the emergency that created some capacity for people to apparently have their natural rights just being removed, which is wrong. You'd think in an emergency you make sure people have their natural right.
All right.
The unity consciousness really is more natural, where a lot of stuff is sort of just frozen logos, and ponerology, which is the study of just evil. And yet, that's just all that gets disappeared because it's insane. It really is where the people by common custom, which is applied more, which is from positive inducted currency created, which we create from a verified vote, where the arm is raised, you see, and that's equal to people's product and service, and so you really don't have any inflation, deflation, and you've got perfect intrinsic worth, meaning it's got a value inside itself, which is equal to an hour of work done in a JC quantum of time, where time is in a quadrillion units in a light second.
Wow.
And so an arm is equivalent to an hour of time in a JC quantum. So we the people really get rid of monopolization, because how can you have proper communication where something exists of monopolizedness? You look, and everybody does to see things included versus excluded, and so you could point out what the other view is. You must, because otherwise, what's gone on? You've just got one-sided condition in your head. If all really is given to the children, which it should be, and that children are born out of a form of discretion, and that yours and my care must be more to do with the children and people and beloved of the earth, which is the real estate. It's what is of unlimited worth versus gold or anything else, which is of a limited worth instead. So you and I, we could see, Lifehouse communities set up, and life with agrarianism, where you and I, we're really using the earth properly, like water and all things, and you've got clean energy, which is sustainable, and this is what you and I would do. We wouldn't be continuing on with dirty this, dirty that, and we don't care for dirty energy at all much, but you want something sustainable in the picture, and you don't want to just take stuff away to control people, basically, because it's really just track, tag, and ID, because you're put into a circumstance where, you don't have the means or wherewithal, and like what's coming up to try to crash the net with and blame a nation, to try to start a war with a nation and blame them, you see, all really become seed, don't we, for what is claimed and is positive. And in a new epoch, you've got governance, and this like what we're talking about is a strange attractor, where claim is resolved. It really is the meal, the celebration, which the water pours to show you where this is in their allegory. And so this is a strange attractor because it's a future paced, it's set up. It's set up because you've got these claims which is present, and those need to be discharged. And it's just unanimous most that all care to be selecting a republic at peace. And everywhere you go around the earth, this is what people say. And so, if people want to learn a little more, they could learn more by listening to other podcasts that we have and things about this. And if you're focusing on a resolution versus continuously focusing on what's wrong, but focusing on what a resolution is. And one could study a little more about this with the Path of Hollow Bones, and you could go to jubbdavid.com, and you could be letting people know more about what is of value in the podcast that we're doing, where things are, because you could see that anything that's criminal basically has patterns that relate to that, like redacted information, meaning the information was there, but then it's taken away. So you can see what's taken away and the motive behind it, and that's criminal. And so, it's the fourth estate that helps correct all of this. And under negative economic inductance, nobody really has any substance. That's wrong itself. Well, somebody does, but you and I don't. So you've got Lone Rangers set up, and you've got gold fingers set up to finger things and what have you. But a species of woman really is you and I having perfect detachment and not having any boundaries more, where living is more truth. And for you and I, where we have a vacuum, things of more falling in, there's no walls, that's what love is. And we are all owned by each other in a manner of being, and this is like the unity in dichotomy. That's what the definition of love really is. That all of us equally are equal, of course, and yet the difference, or what makes something as a characteristic, can be your focus and your attitude. Simple. And so the inside, where you are or I are, where we are, is outside. It's the same as what you've got outside. And now you're living more congruently as you can. And you can see congruent language is parallel processing versus somebody says something like, I like you, but, and they put a but in there and just negate everything else that was said. So like warmth and blood is who's real, who is living, and you're learning not to have a need, running around with need. How can you serve anybody where you just pull stuff just focused on one's own personal need? None could find anything historical that would be different from the corpse having been put that was above you and I, the living. And this is sort of like a criminal banking cartel of a one world order, C.B. Cower, which really is a system of horror where you're looking at that. This work a lot is about the rainbow prophecy, which is positive. It's about looking at what we need to do to actually help correct things by bringing common law back. And this is the narrative, and it's a better narrative. It's better to be more with a happy face and have the parts more of well-being, and be more where the beloved is, and be more plant-based, which is our species, and having reverence more for nature. And so, you and I, it's really good for us because, well, we can have peace and liberty and justice. And who's residing ever more where you're in common practice, it's really otherwise, it's just to become giving grace, or otherwise, it's not the limitless being that this Father is more, where we're talking about what resides more in eternity. And for this kind of, somebody could have found more in the search for self, and so experience that's recalled, or memory and things, that cannot pass as the real thing. It doesn't, and yet only you and I could take on what's going on, and you can have more a focus on more of what reality is about this, and we could be free of more, like what we're saying, self-identification, because there's no reason to. You found self, but until such a time, that's very positive, isn't it? Yet what's perceived, everybody really is learning that they're not the perceiver. You're the witness of what you're perceiving, and this is who is real, not the sensation itself. So this is sort of eye-aware more, and where stillness is, silence is, transparency is, and like a silent witness, and the finding of the source more of consciousness, where somebody is and where the present really is, and that you're in a void because it's not something that you can have thought about, because it means you're not receptive. So, being in the moment is not thinking about anything. It's really being in the void. And so the present is something unwrapped. And so it's a very more deep receptivity to what makes sense, that's getting installed more, and you're getting a focus of realize that what we can do as we the people, as a chain of command, is activated. And finally, we could see freedom, and you can see that freedom really is because you don't need to have any process as much about self-identification anymore. So a new epoch really is accepting life more where this is, and that you're not the doer in any act at all, and that this is you and I beyond an I am sort of body idea. It's more as in coming from an interest and pleasure in your own being, which allows everybody to be able to remain more in our frontal cortex. And now you've got the faculty to inspire creative influence of the future, whereas if you're in a aversive state, it neurologically would have inhibited these areas of your brain, because these two are in compartment relatives. And so eye awareness really is bliss naturally flowing, because you've achieved a state of emptiness within, and you've got this changeless bliss against a background of some things which is changeful. Yet only you and I, we could see really a mind which is caused more to be eye-aware, or you've got somebody's got things in the mind there, and it's sort of more insane itself, because it's sort of internal dialogue and that sort of thing is sort of where deficiency is. And so just like where a deficiency of export exists to import, which that's going on right now, and there's hardly any boats coming for anything, and what used to be called the Baltic Dry Index about shipping and things, is sort of really nothing going on much. And you've got this in relation, of course, to importing things, which would be goods and things that would come in. And is it that you're looking to see that suddenly all of that is disappearing? All that's relative causes, black swanning, and having emergencies that black swan, meaning that it just was an event that was beyond our capacity to be able to manage, and design sort of like that. So most can see, of course, what's COVID and all the lockdown and everything, which was to launder currency by taking away people's proper savings and their investments. And you and I, anybody would have had surplus savings and loans. And so once this is all loaned, it's all bought, and the treasury, somebody bought that, and they're getting, and somebody gave that. And so you've got a creditor and a debitor, and most of these nations, they want to make sure that they're going to get paid. The value of a currency really that is increasing or decreasing is very volatile, as a system, because you've got massive amounts of speculation in that, which isn't properly tied to governance, which it should, and that it should be regulated more, so it's just functioning as water does. So water just transports your goods and service, doesn't it? And that's what currency is supposed to do. It shouldn't be privately wielded by a monopoly, which it is, and it should have an intrinsic value in perpetuity, meaning it has the same value as it had 70 years ago or whatever. Because why should all of a sudden that unit that you were given it was in exchange, suddenly it's not worth anything anymore? You see, that is a way to look at things that, currency should really sort of be more, in perpetuity and have the same sort of value, but you've got a foreign enemy on the as the corpse, which the US corpse has a ledger, and I don't think anybody felt that we should merge our ledgers with any corpse which is looking upon you and I as some enemy, as our corpse, as some corpse, you see? So corpses look at each other's corpses as enemies, and they're all set up to spy on each other by the Subikawa system, and each one of those can be organising a cyber attack on us, and we on them, and any one of them can pull that, and it's all run by a private company that has patsies that are set up, and they're deciding who's going to get access to any data and that sort of thing. And that's what's gone on in New Zealand. Like somebody all of a sudden said, well, you saw that there were deaths, all sorts of things, and you're not to report about that because you didn't have permission. It's like, that's pretty crazy, because like that's protected disclosure, protected conduct, and that no matter how crazy it is, under whistleblower laws, you ought to be able to hear what the allegation is, and you can't not be impartial to hear what the allegation is, where something is. You can't just dismiss the allegation, which that's a crime itself, and it's not under proper law or order or statute, which things should be under proper law and order, shouldn't it be, and under statute as it's supposed to be. And so, the government needs to be protected. That's the reason why the fourth state is existing. You would say that we the people isn't the government? That's crazy. That's right above. Government is supposed to be what we the people selected for ourselves. Otherwise, you're going to get collectively punished, apparently, you see. And you didn't select any of what's going on, but everybody looks upon you and I or anybody not to be responsible, not having a proper civic duty, standing by seeing crimes going on, like JFK's murder, 9/11, 3/11, Pearl Harbor, the Bay of Tonkin, the Lithuania. It just goes on and on, and 10/7. So why would we would allow a private company to have all the ledger of all the information after this reset, because they've used this false flag to do it, but afterward you've got a foreign operative that is the one, and all backdoored information for all the dams, all the water facilities, all the ports, all the nuclear facilities, everything. And that the company that really did that founded that private company, and that they're doing things for themselves for profit, and that they're getting into all the critical governmental infrastructure and things, and causing ledgers to all be merged afterward. And how did they do it? By having a false flag cyber attack, and blaming even Iran as kind of a name that comes up a lot, where people look at all of this, and all the players really there in clandestine positions. And that's crazy. Why would you and I let that be? That's what's going on. And as a metaphor, all compromised, utterly run by a company, and you've got a project. It's like a honeypot So people will say, oh, that was about sex on the surface, but meanwhile, backdoor, they were selling all this security stuff. And that's what's not said. That's wrong. So you're getting things like Floyd and knee on the neck stuff, and you've got police who are framed and innocently framed, and proper truth, which should have come out, only to be something very politicized. And you've got people that never committed any crime whatsoever and did good service, basic, really, and they deserve better treatment than to just be put away without proper investigation, by having stand-down order not to investigate, or have not look at the exculpatory information that does exist and look to see what the cause of Floyd's death was. But why would it have been so incredible that it was manipulated so utter without that being, not for the people there having a proper trial, like the officers that were scapegoated? That's wrong. You could see good people, where anyone is, bandwagon with slippery slope and straw man argument, and put with ad hoc fallacious types of reasoning, which somebody could learn about those types of fallacious forms of reasoning. But you've a preemptive strike, like what in the story, like what we're talking about, is because there was an enemy and it did a cyber, and it shut down the internet. But there's only one group that can do something that's like that, really, and not like with box cutters or something. But it's really rebooted afterward. Keep in mind that you don't have any investigation. See? Yeah? Wow. That's right. So energy could be sabotaged in a nation, and there's no proper investigation. So that's the plan, Stan, see? And it's ongoing until it stops. But you've got a cyber attack that's sustained, and it's coming up for 2024, in the bigger picture. But all policies, which is, a fortune that's given, isn't it, to someone, and they enrich themselves, you can see it. And it's a pattern for company members, and to get a rising star and get a gold finger, get a Lone Ranger. You've got controlled opposition. You are the opposition. And like you are Hamas, or you are Israel, you are Iran, you are Yemen, and you are controlling all this opposition to create the various things. But if you and I have a billionaire class who could just have all these backdoor secret deals, you're not supposed to do that. You've got cells in cells. You've got operating, under CB Calamore. You've got all of that dominating people's lives, where the inside really are getting richer, and the insiders all get tipped off. And so you see put stocks always, like before 10/7 or 9/11 or whatever. You see a lot of these put stocks all that show that you've got a highly criminal organised activity, and those people could all know this, but somebody else didn't. It's really, no, that's not right. You see, it is. You've got to keep in mind that it's really breaking the bank, isn't it? Yes, that's right. And because contagion, which doesn't exist, you can't pass it on. So no cash, it's just drying up. All connected to the one emergency that starts because of currency, because you can't have cash because you've got a German is going to travel at the faster than a jet. So you have incidences where things happen and they get used. And then in other nations, interesting at the same time, you've got this going on. You've got this knee on the neck, same sort of thing. Stories. It's a put that kind of what is seen really is totally controlled, and so you're not really seeing what controlled substances, for instance, that Floyd was consuming, and even what was in his mouth more when he was getting arrested for the note that was fraudulent, that the owner sort of. But how much was that? Was some set up itself where you've got a fall guy in a picture that's innocent, yet you've got the fall of the third precinct of the police department afterward, which they had a loss of many from the police force afterwards, and planned set up. So all was a spin on George Floyd incident, where you can see crowds all proclaiming something, and it's all done by the news coverage, which was placed and put to polarize people, and that 10,000 was just primed, or everything was really like more wartime. You've got 10,000 in the crowd suddenly, you see, and all enraged, and it's like suddenly you're looking at a third world nation, or no, and people getting firebombed and things getting smashed up, and there was no proper defense of any nature set up, like a stand down, and you see, these are things just like it was set to be a problem, and when you've got an emergency medical service sort of mistakes, that's all not noticed. That's going on, and people can really have questions, because you could look at all of the evidence versus only little bits of it. And so the medical reports definitely did show fentanyl, of course, and enough of that to cause someone to no longer be able to breathe, and as a component of the things that was going on where this was. And so to place the charges which has been on the innocent people, like the police, for instance, that was involved with this, is, and that the cause of death wasn't really looked at properly. So information shows, like what we're talking about, something else going on completely, and that the people who can have found fentanyl in George's system, I mean, yet the story really would be manipulated, so you and I, we could have bought something else, and anyone that's together really could then be, can't be against public opinion, you see, yes? So that because they rallied out public opinion, and then how could anybody then bring out another fact that showed that something else was really the case, actually, you see. But yeah, well, I'm just bringing this up as a metaphor because there's so much anybody could talk about. Yet it's really a lack of impartiality that you're looking at, and all the time where criminality is, and it's an incident that's taken over like an innocent officer's life. That's bothersome, because he's somebody who really cares about things and did a lot of service, but really was implicated and used, and an innocent man too can have been, who's to know how Floyd was involved as where things were, but nobody deserves to die, and the knee more or less was on the shoulder blade relative, and so wasn't restricting any of the passage per se of itself, but stress of itself, where fentanyl release, there was enough in the system that could cause cardiac arrest, so what's exculpatory in the evidence showing innocence where someone is? You've got these mistakes often that should be looked at and things, but it can't be. It isn't in a procedure which is taken over where you don't really have a voice, where you're just chattel in that picture, and so the sentencing, all of it was a sham, and the police chief was asked to go on misleading people that facts that did exist about training and things wouldn't be let be to the people, because you've got like a mob rule being primed around this, so truth doesn't come out like it should. So you've got plants certainly that place a spin on it all, and so you see those plants placing the spin, and yet you've got 27 million that's awarded afterward, Floyd's family, and you see the innocent officers as the fall guy, where the second sentence is there. So the world really witnesses a condemnation of law and order afterward, right? And it was done like to create that as a false flag, and was it really to actually purge the police? It had the effect of certainly purging lots, because and then is it that you just get new trained patsies in as recruit more, and you just use that to get rid of certain people, or bring others in, or not have any, but yet it really doesn't really serve a purpose for like jumping up and saying Black Lives Matter and then linking it to it, like what went on. The police department lost hundreds of police afterward, and the 3 years that was afterward, if you look, which I have, they had a very great loss. Hundreds of police no longer were found there after all of this happened, you see. So it's really warnings where the company sits in these critical offices, and a massive resistance where something would be like to the cyber attack, for instance, that what we're talking about overall, that's coming up more. And we should all verify various things, and it shouldn't be the supercharged surveillance, which that's like the theme is the false flag is to supercharge surveillance. And so you've got the Department of Justice, and you've got pre-crime sort of program going on, where people start to get arrested, and even the SWAT teams come and do kill somebody for posting something and things, and people get to see the news of it all, and it's tied to you being present, and like a tripwire was set up, and it was a setup, a lot of it, and it's just like legal name for it. It's like it's something preemptive that is being planned about this cyber attack, but a fast, rapid sort of false flag operation really is set up more by the enemy corps, and they're all trained to be doing that to each other. And how will anyone know what is there? Who can apply such a cyber attack? Really, it's sort of all being set up as the asymmetric war attack ready to go. You've got 195 national corporations, and some of those corps aren't seeing eye to eye with each other, and so that it's legal for them to be looking at what they would do asymmetric to protect themselves by knocking down someone else's system. But it's a massive online type of funding and things, and Mossad behind a lot of these secret types of military intel, and wherever regime change is, and it's Mossad relative that it would be a focus of always non-stop wanting the regime to be changed in Iran. And so to get a preemptive strike on Iran, it's non-stop being spoken like for some years. So would people have a feeling that when they do an assimilation for these things that they're getting ready to do something? Yes. And especially whenever they say that they would do something like that, and they always have to do it in the election year, you see, because now you can control people. So you've got a global plan for censorship of the internet, and you can see that the company patsies for the criminal banking cartel of One World Order are put in charge of various parts of what this is, and it's a voluntary agency who really wants to provide security for all of our critical infrastructure. And it's very odd, of course, that crisis is all hit around the same time, and you've got a patsy, more foreign intel, and for free, you've got services being offered to keep infrastructure safe. And so, but you've got centralization of all of it. You've got an operation under an alphabet soup land, a partnership more, where everything is indirectly a side gig, and no one knows how, but it'll be just one company that gets to vet what you could see or what you can't see, you see, and that's somebody who's certainly not a national where you are in the nation, but someone foreign. So it's a cyber false flag is to get that digital ID, and the intelligence agency is really run by the company. You've got Patsy that have got all of these honeypots, makes it look like something else going on in the surface, but meanwhile, backdoor, they're organising the security and selling it all. And it's a criminal pattern that's been ongoing unconscionably, that we start to talk a bit about how did it all happen, and that it just was contracting with a baby to get a BC bond, and to use that money as currency by a private group that own that all caps franchising, and the goal of all of that franchising is, hey, same sort of thing going on. Your ID that everybody's being asked to have is not anything that will give you a natural right that's come from your title. So it's a state of a state of a state that owns it, and that's a fiction, God help us. And anonymity is to be dangerous. You can't do that anymore because the company bots, and there's so many company bots, you don't know if that's who this is real or who's not, where some account is and all sorts of things. It's very dangerous that none of us could see, and that where you've got a loss of anonymity, you've really got a loss of privacy. You're giving it, people are being asked to give it up. So it's an anonymous hacker that sort of disrupts and eliminates privacy. And so you've got the end of anonymity, of course, anonymity, anon. So it's what threatens the future more of your own privacy, really, is the banks that's getting involved in all this simulations, and behind it, and so it's interesting. It's like you've got in the false flag, one group gets blamed, and we all have a belief, and it's all been built up. So we're going to go along with that. Don't bother investigating it. That's true. Now we'll have a preemptive strike on those people. That's wrong. And in the meantime, backdoor here, the whole thing is being done. So, as I said, it's to take away proper power and things, and that the internet would then be sort of something extremely censored, and got to do it before the election. So you've got all of it really is to track, tag, and ID basically, and to get that to control. So a private corps can't have decided your fate, but that's what's being set up. And when it isn't lawful, you've got we the people from the land, and yet you've got this cyber power, which is, by the fiction and by C.B. Cower, a dominion more over us, where you and I, we the people, have been asked to be consensual about something like this, but we're not being asked to give consent, nor any consideration is ever been given. And you've got just you and I as a private citizen, but one person could be barred and yet another person engaged in a whole range of business sorts of incentivisedness in government, and that discretion, all of that comes more from a conflicted interest. And so it's common law where you've got a proper chain of command, and you've really got to clear away C.B. Cower conditioning, because it's just really nobody cares much for the whole thing to be just tracked, tagged, and ID'd. So it's a genocidal policy ongoing, and fake emergencies where all the being of the economics is really for laundering currency and creating more of a land grab. And so monies would be given to a nation for its war effort, but be spent here to keep the war machine going and not go over there at all, but be used here instead. It's just so wrong, isn't it? Yes? And it's time that we clear away that monopolisation. Otherwise, you've got the depopulation and land grabs, and you've got all these level 4 biowarfare labs having been set up in universities, which how could that be so? And nobody would have been consented for that. You've got a fake sort of issues of contagion, which has to be looked at to see that no contagion exists, and that you've got cash all being dried up because of that. You've got so much that's gone on, and really it's to move you into a digital ID, which isn't going to give you any natural right, which should all, and by bringing all this up, you clear it up. So we've got a bright future versus what's going on. So it's access to information. It shouldn't be restricted per se. We should have the ability to have transparency. And I don't see that it would be right that some groups would be privileged to be given a right to get into one of those accounts and stuff, and that can be not anything relating to government. But C.B. Cower always sets all up to be blameless itself, keep in mind, right? So it's a very unconscionable act for us to contract with a baby, to get a BC bond, and then take all credit from you or I after that. In 2010, of course, you see the confiscation laws all passed, how the corps could, you and I, we have to do a bail-in, and the people who own the bank can take whatever you have on deposit for themselves. And so all now it's really clear. You've got CB counter controllers which all this time doesn't has any care about your natural right, and you can't have a naturalized corporation. And you've got Black Swan globally that's been coordinated, and a genocidal program which really began many years ago, and by implementing legislation and things, and putting a kill box over everyone, the legal name for it, common law, trespass, and all the BC bonds used as credit that we the peoples to be directed toward things which it wasn't of any nature to bring anything of justice or any benefit. So those who know the WEF, of course, and they're always giving you clues about everything coming up, don't they? Yes, they do. And in their voice and chatty stuff, you hear the internet shut down and the cyber attack, and who's going to get blamed? And we must have false flag because we need to take control of the net. And so you've got all these simulations like Cyber Polygon engaging 195 nations and all the banks and government and things. And it's the cyber realm of the big tech company, of course, that's controlling and organising and does it all through some private philanthropy pumped in there. And then you've got the Federal Reserve Bank jumping into bed with everything there, and hope that all change is of something which is constant. And so the battle's ongoing where these people are is blameless for themselves, and it's just intelligence of the company that's in full swing to use this false flag and like what we're talking about in the example of cyber attack, and that's just to be used to eventually, of course, regulate the net. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, you and I really should form the fourth estate as we can. Look into this. Stay posted more to podcast and check out more what the difference is between venue from the land versus only a commercial venue. Yes, in court procedure and stuff. All right. Well, anyway, I hope you're having a great day, mate. As you just and
Thank you so much.
did a nice hour show. Love you, mate.
Beauty, mate.
So much, brother.